welcome to Mind Gourmet. My name is Nina Kaiser. I'm the co-founder of Mind Gourmet, and as always, your host. And my today's guest, for the second time, is thought coach, mindfulness teacher, and author of Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity, Ora Nadrich. Welcome back, Ora. Thank you for being my guest again.
Hi, Nina. Thank you for having me again.
Oh, I'm just so happy and excited we get to have this conversation. And I'm thinking before we dive into our conversation, for everyone who doesn't know you yet, let me introduce you just a little bit.
Okay.
Ora Nadrich is the founder and president of the Institute for Transformational Thinking. She's a certified life coach, thought coach, certified mindfulness meditation teacher, and author of Says Who, How One Simple Question Can Change the Way You Think Forever, and Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity. Ora's extensive psychospiritual exploration in Jungian analysis, Buddhism, cognitive behavioral therapy, technology of change, and Kabbalah has influenced her work. Ora is a frequent blogger for the Huffington Post and has been featured as a panelist on Huffington Post Live. She's written many articles for Women's Health, Yahoo Health, Success Magazine, Spirituality and Health, Mind Body Green, and many other publications. Ora leads workshops on transformational thinking and the Says Who method, a step-by-step process of confronting our negative thoughts, which are what often create the obstacles in our lives. Providing both tangible and practical lessons, Ora students are able to address and overcome their negative thoughts and outlooks to life, to live their lives at their highest potential. Among her other workshops are Mastering Your Mind, Living a Mindful Life, Conscious Manifestation, and Love, Sex, and Mindfulness. Ora also offers thought coach certification trainings through her educational organization, the IFTT, the Institute for Transformational Thinking. She lives in beautiful Los Angeles with her husband, Jeff, and two sons, Jake and Benjamin. Yeah, so reading Live True actually made me realize, and I consider this as a big gift and revelation, you know, how sometimes you feel like you understand something on a really deeper level, even though you thought you got it before. I realized how close concepts that seem so vast and stand for themselves, like mindfulness, authenticity, wholeness, or the present moment, how they actually belong together, and that in a way they need each other or they can't be without each other, and that they cannot be seen separately if we want to grasp their full meaning. And so I'm totally looking forward to diving into these concepts. And please, would you begin with taking us on a little journey to what inspired you actually to writing Live True?
Well, I had been a mindfulness practitioner prior to writing Live True. And with my first book, Says Who, which is a cognitive method and technique for transforming negative and fear-based thoughts, which also is mindfulness-based. My work really, again, the thrust of my work is mindfulness. And Live True came to me right after my sister Esther passed away. And I know, Nina, we've spoken before, and I know that we talked about that. I had a sister. I'm one of four. She was my second to the oldest sister. And she suffered from mental illness and was diagnosed with schizophrenia at 19, almost 20 years old. So she's been a real integral part of my work. I really attribute my psychospiritual journey to her, in that when she became ill, my world got turned upside down, and it really set me on a path of wanting to understand the workings of the mind. When Esther passed away, I was profoundly affected by it. And I went into deep grieving as a result of her passing. What was really interesting to me is that while I was in a grief state, I wrote Live True, as if she guided me to write this book. And You know, for anybody who's lost a loved one, the preciousness of their passing, the preciousness of our love for them, but also the preciousness of time really came into full view for me, in that we don't have time to waste. We don't have a single moment to waste. And I word it like that in Live True, in that who are we to waste the moments of our life? Remember, if you recall, I don't know, that's a very important question that I ask in Live True. So that is really what the inspiration of Live True was, the call to action, if you will, to value every moment of our life, because as I say, we will never get those moments again. So she really was the great inspiration for me to write Live True.
Yeah, yeah, I totally understand. And you say in the title of Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity. And already here are those two concepts in one sentence. And you say that mindfulness and authenticity are, it's a hard word for me to pronounce, but I like it, inexorably linked. So I love, especially with words that we have heard so often and we think we know what they are, I actually love exploring the meaning of words. So would you explain us what are the concepts of mindfulness and authenticity, and why is it that they are in a way almost like twins?
That's interesting that you use that metaphor of twins, because I was thinking that when you were speaking, like I saw an image of like Siamese twins,
Yes.
joined, literally joined in a bodily organism, if you will, and they really are for me. And that word came up very extemporaneous for me. I could have said they're integral. There's an integral link to them, but I felt like no, it's more than that. One cannot almost exist without the other, meaning that being present, yes, of course we can be present. We can be present, and we are present all the time to varying degrees, meaning we're in a moment, present in that moment of real time. But who is showing up in the moment? Who is the person that is in that moment? Are you being somebody that you don't really want to be? Are you pleasing somebody because you feel you have to? Are you going against your deepest wishes and doing something that you don't really want to do? So what I'm really asking the reader is, can you invite yourself into the moments of your life being truly authentic to who you are? You know, this is a journey that I'm taking the reader on to explore what it means not only to be present, but can you show up again in the moments of your life as your truest, most authentic self?
Yeah. And it's almost like when we are 100% authentic, we are mindful. And if we are 100% mindful and present, does it mean we are 100% authentic as well? Or are we 100% aware of our level of authenticity? How would you say that?
Beautifully said, Nina. Exactly correct. In that when we heighten our awareness, which mindfulness is the practice of being present with total awareness. Okay, so in our state of awareness, we become more cognizant and aware of who am I in this moment? And with that awareness, we can ask ourselves, am I being real? Again, am I being authentic? Am I partly hiding myself? Am I feeling afraid to show who I really am in this moment? So what that really does essentially is it heightens the awareness of who we are. And even let's just say we show up in a moment, we're present in a moment, and we feel afraid to present the full authentic self. We have an awareness of that. And even if the moment has passed, you know, I have something in Live True called Mindfulness Repair,
Yes.
that we become aware that maybe we weren't as present or mindful in a moment. So let's say that we are not fully being authentic in a moment. We leave that moment, we go away, we can ponder why wasn't I truly authentic in that moment? What was I feeling? Was I afraid? Was I embarrassed? Did I feel threatened in some way? You know, what this does essentially is it heightens, as I said, our awareness. And, you know, I love that quote by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the French philosopher. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And our human experience sometimes, you know, requires us to refine who we are. So what I'm offering up with my work is, it is a journey of awakening. And in that awakening, we learn how to become more authentic. This isn't an overnight thing. None of it is overnight. None of it is instant. We're on the path of self-realization. If you so choose to be on that path, we're on the path of awakening. And in our awakening, we become to know more about ourselves. You know, this time that we're in right now is an extraordinary opportunity for that, I might add. I have to interject by saying that this is a time to really become more aware of our authentic self, do you know? And in the discovery of that, we might find the areas in which we have been withholding the authentic self, okay? So, you know, really the way those two, again, are linked is mindfulness. By strengthening our mindfulness practice, we start to develop a stronger awareness. And by developing that stronger awareness, we become more aware of when we are stepping not only in and out of a moment, but are we being authentic? Or to what degree of authenticity are we being in that moment?
Yes, and I find it so interesting that the more we practice being aware and present, for example, by meditating, the more we are becoming aware how often we slip into programs and patterns and beliefs. It's almost like, for me, when we start on this, when we embark on this journey of more awareness, we realize suddenly so strongly how often we are not aware, that it's almost like, what is this present moment? Is it, why does it slip from me so often? Why am I always catching myself after it happened and not before it happens? So what is it, this present moment, or the concept of time, maybe better asked? And why do we seem, we humans beings, to have such trouble staying in the beautiful state of the present moment?
Well, it takes an effort on our part because, like you said, you say something like, we're programmed, we're conditioned, and we're habitual beings. You know, we create lives for ourselves that are really focused on the doing. Do you know, we are out in the world, we're proactive. This requires us to be in a forward motion of doing. So there is a dichotomy there, you know, that is the dualism, the dualistic nature of existence. I think when we acknowledge that we live in a dualistic state, do you know, then we can learn how to work with it better. And again, to use the word that I use, we begin to refine the process. You know, an image that popped into my mind was when you're walking into the ocean, the waves are coming at you. You can't ask the waves to stop. That is the natural order of the ocean. The waves are coming at us. And so what we tend to do is we move our bodies, we work with what is opposing us. And we want to go into the ocean past that breaking point where the ocean is a little bit more calm. And that's when we can. So I think that's a, you know, for me, it just came to me as I think a good metaphor for, it's a given. Life is this forward motion, if you will. And again, where mindfulness helps us, it gives us the awareness that we have to find time to not be constantly pulled in that motion. So that's where meditation and contemplation and anything that's contemplative, that we stop, which I encourage people to do, you know, at different intervals of the day, to really stop, and you start to develop something that becomes, you know, a much more heightened awareness of present moment awareness. You become much more aware of that life is constantly pulling us. It's a current. It's constantly pulling us, it's constantly beckoning, it's constantly seducing us, if you will, to come in. So it really is incumbent upon us to take those breaks, to take those pauses, to say, stop. I'm stopping the current from pulling me in and being present. Do you know? And for many people, that's not easy for them to do because they rather like being pulled in the current. They rather like being busy. They're like, why should I stop? The current feels great. I want to be seduced into life. I want to be busy. I want to be in that constant state of productivity. They're not mutually exclusive. All really mindfulness is asking you is to pause, to stop. We have actually been forced to stop with this pandemic. This to me is the greatest pause that ever was.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know? And a lot of people are grappling with it. They're having a very hard time. I mean, yes, it's difficult and challenging for a variety of reasons, but it's also very difficult and challenging for the very reasons we're talking. Stopping the movement, the motion, the mania, you know, the constant hustle bustle, the constant doing. Do you know, we are so programmed to do 24, I mean, practically every minute of the day other than when we're sleeping. So this is a way to work with the dichotomy, the dualistic nature of human existence. Do you know, we need to understand it better and work with it.
Yeah. And in my perception of it, it's almost like there's also this dichotomy between, on one hand, we are faced with the unknown, which in a way makes us more present because we can't really anticipate what's going to happen. And on the other side, because the unknown is often something we're afraid of, we step into survival, which then either makes us like rethink again and again and again what has happened in the past, or lets us dread about the future. So like you say, would you say that the stream of life that at this point in time is presenting itself to us makes it a lot more visible, in a sense, this contrast of stillness and movement?
Yes, I mean, because if you think about it, again, the dichotomy, the contradiction, the dualistic nature, we are being threatened. Our survival is definitely being threatened. We're dealing with a novel virus that's a silent monster, not invisible monster. Do you know, we suddenly are facing something that could be our annihilation, if you will. So we have something that keeps us more in a fight or flight state. And what that does is it does make us not really feel comfortable in the present because we're in a fear state. We have to work through these stages and these states of consciousness and realize that we don't have to stay gripped in fear. So that's where we make a concerted effort, a conscious effort to be present, not just being at the effect of our survival instincts. Do you know, that's going to pull us into it's a necessary state of, you know, to be in fear. We have every right to be concerned about our well-being, but we will notice during this time that we will step into the future way more than we ever have. What's going to happen? Will I have a job? You know, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? What's going to happen with the economy? Is the coronavirus going to be something that we're never going to be able to eradicate? I mean, there are a plethora of fear-inducing thoughts that deal with the future, of what could or might happen.
Yes.
Or we're stuck in the past of lamenting or wishing, well, why didn't I do this? And maybe if I had done that, and I should have done more of this, and now I'm stuck, and why didn't I get this done by a certain time? So we need to be very mindful that the two time constructs of the past and the future. And what we have an opportunity is to be more present now, in the moment, the real time. And, you know, part of acknowledging our discomfort in the present, because we're so being pulled into the future worry, concern, and the past of wanting to redo the way things were, mindfulness gives us an awareness of that, which is fantastic. And it can say, oh, okay, I'm spinning out here. I'm really in a hyper state of worry about what's going to happen in the future, catch it. Catch it in the moment that you're about to spiral into a total state of anxiety and go, you know what? I have no control of the future. It isn't here yet. All I can do is hope for the best. All I can do is stay present and try and be in a state of mind that helps me, that serves my well-being, and it can actually be instrumental in me planning for the future, be more solution oriented. Do you know, worry does nothing for us. It doesn't help us at all. You know, as I say in my first book, Says Who, I have a chapter called The Something to Worry About Thoughts. Do you know, we are constantly worrying about what could or might happen.
Yeah. And speaking of worry and anxiety, fear and suffering, there is a paragraph in your book that I have made myself a note of because I find it very powerful. You write, remember, if you stay open in a moment, you can, oh, I think I left out of suffering. You can receive what it has to give you. But if you rest in it or constrict, the moment cannot penetrate you and it will pass you by. And I find this so interesting. First, because spontaneously we would say, so, well, what can a moment of suffering give us? And then we do, or I do realize though, that if I contract and if I get into survival mode, I kind of lose the connection to life itself in a way. And so I wanted to ask you, how can we receive the gift, in the sense of the present moment, while we feel so bad? And what does it mean that the moment cannot penetrate us?
Well, I think that, you know, we're not inclined to be receptive to anything that's uncomfortable for us or painful. What we want to do is hurry that moment along, just like we want to hurry the coronavirus along. We just want to rush it by. And again, if you think about it, it's such a right metaphor, an example of how impatient we are with our discomfort, how impatient we are with our pain. Understandably so. Who wants to just hang out with pain? Do you know? But, you know, as Buddha had explained, suffering is part of human existence. You know, it's one of the first truths of the Four Noble Truths, you know, that life is suffering. It exists. So, but when we're gripped by it, our instinct again is to ameliorate our pain and discomfort and to hurry it along. Now, we might not know right then and there in the moment that we're experiencing pain that there's a great lesson for us to learn, or there's a great gem or a pearl, or what I say, the sweet spot is on the other side of pain. Sometimes we need a little distance from it. But what I want to really encourage people is not to hurry it along. You might not get the lesson just then and there, but if you want to numb it or anesthetize it or thwart it or push it down or run from it or deny it and all the things that we tend to do to avoid our discomfort and our pain, then you know what? It's not going to penetrate us. We're not going to be able to receive. I use penetrating as a way to literally be, to receive. It cannot penetrate us. We cannot receive anything if we don't allow it to enter us. Do you know? If we're so busy avoiding something, and this is, excuse me, this is a very big part of our tendency, is to avoid and to run away and to numb and to anesthetize and to deny. Do you know, we're really good at that. And the thing that is really the most powerful around this time, even though I'm sure alcohol use and drug use has spiked tenfold during this time, and I don't say that as a judgment. If somebody wants to fix themselves a cocktail, you know, at the end of the day or whatever, to give themselves a little bit of a lightening their mental load, I don't have judgment of that. But just watch how much are you numbing yourself out or anesthetizing yourself because you're so uncomfortable with your discomfort and or pain at this time.
Yeah, and in my experience, even though I have a great tendency to not want to surrender to the experience of pain and suffering, I also kind of realize that it comes again and again with different faces, different places, different things. But it's like Groundhog Day. In some way, I believe I really need to receive it and let it move through me, also to be able to make certain experiences with myself that allow me to move beyond my own limitations in a way. And I love it when you, in the chapter of change, because we so often want to change either because we desire something or because we want to get rid of something. And I love it because you say every day is a chance, because we only have now to have a very different life. And that it's so interesting that after making this decision, it often takes just a few little moments, and then we're back in our old behaviors. And there's this thing with our beliefs and patterns about ourselves and life. And would you say it's almost like we copy and paste our past into the future, because by not being in the present moment, we actually don't see our own judgments about ourselves and life?
I think that that's certainly a tendency that we can have. Do you know? Really, Nina, the beauty of mindfulness, in the practice of mindfulness, is you start to become much more aware of your tendencies. Do you know? And that's what's really helpful. This is a beautiful unfolding. It's a process. So the things that you're mentioning are inevitable. We're going to be pulled out of the moment, or we're going to bring things into the present from our past, or we're going to even bring our worry or concerns of the future into the present. We bring a lot of different things into the present moment. And you know, when we begin to practice mindfulness and we begin to heighten and develop our awareness more, it's like a muscle. We develop it more. We become again more cognizant of what we're bringing into the moment. And of course, it's going to continue. This is an ongoing practice. It's an ongoing, as I said, it's an ongoing journey of awakening. And I want people to be really aware that this is constantly happening, where we're going to take a step backwards, we're going to take a couple steps forward, we're going to stop. We're going to take a step backwards. We're going to take more steps forward. It's the ongoing journey. But what we realize, the more we strengthen our mindfulness practice, the more we really commit, if you will, to telling ourselves, I want to be more present in my life. And I don't want to default to bringing old ideas or beliefs or patterns or programs from the past into the present. You start to really work with it in a way that you can see the changes happening before your eyes. And again, it's not all at once. It's a gradual process, you know, like the way in which you describe the cut and paste. You know, you may do things in your way that brings things into a present moment that's disruptive for you. And I might do it in my way. You know, we each do it in our own kinds of ways. The most important, what's key in this, is to be aware, like, oh, here I go again. That's interesting. I'm not comfortable in the moment, or I'm overly worrying right now in the moment, or I'm, you know, pulled into the past and I'm lamenting about the past, and I'm being critical about myself, about something that maybe I didn't do right or could have done differently. We start to become much more aware, and we catch things faster. And that's the beauty, I feel, of mindfulness, is that we just start to, the gaps start to lessen, if you will. And we start to become much more aware of when we're going into these old patterns of behavior, these old patterns of thinking.
Yes. And for me, one of the most beautiful things in life is when I realize I have reacted or responded differently to something that might be as small as a fly compared to 100,000 times before. And this is like, whoa, I caught myself. I made a different choice. And this has so much beauty. I just love it.
It's really great. That's part of the mindfulness repair, if you will. I don't care who you are. We're human. I don't care if you're, somebody who's written 50 books on how to be more enlightened. Everybody can fall into the traps of the human mind. Everybody can fall traps into defaulting to old habits and patterns of being. Again, we're spiritual beings in the human experience. So the slightest thing can trigger us. The slightest thing can set us off. We're human. We might be having other things that are subliminal, that are affecting us in a certain way that we're not in touch with. Somebody says something to us, someone looks at us in a way that isn't, appealing to us, and we can feel reactive. This is the awareness that we begin to have, where we can catch ourselves responding or reacting in a way that seems unnecessary or exaggerated, and we become more mindful about our actions, our deeds, our words, our thoughts. We just become much more mindful human beings as a result of it. And as you said, it's also really great when we go, wow, I really handled that well.
Mm-hmm.
I was so present. I did not react. I did not, go off on this person, because, one of the things I want to bring up about the stay-at-home isolation is that we're in close quarters. For those that are in close quarters with loved ones, people are, sharing with me that they feel like they have to make a conscious effort not to pick at their partner, or not to take everything so personally, or not to be annoyed. You're suddenly in close quarters, and it might really affect you in a different way. So this mindful awareness is so helpful during this time when we're in much closer quarters with one another. And we can feel really good when we can say, oh, that was much more loving to my partner. I was much more patient. I really practiced mindfulness listening with my loved ones today. It's such a great thing to use during this time.
Yes, I think so too. And within those concepts that all in a way go together and need each other, like mindfulness, authenticity, and being present, there's also this almost non-graspable thing that's called wholeness, or the experience of oneness, which to me often feels like the most beautiful state that cannot be produced on demand, or not yet by me at least. And I would like to know, this wonderful state of wholeness, can it only be experienced in the present moment? And because we are whole, does it mean that there is no other way than expressing it authentically?
Well, first of all, I think that wholeness, and I talk about that in the book, I believe we come in whole. I think we come into our life, as when we're born. I believe that this is my personal interpretation, that we come in as these spiritual beings, and that we're whole, and that on the life journey, our spirits can be conditioned, can be programmed, and can even be broken along the way. Now, I'm a perennial optimist. I believe we have the capacity to heal and to become whole again. I don't believe that it's something that has to stay in a broken state, if you will. So, but when we become more aware of where we need to maybe piece ourselves back together again, depending on where you feel fragmented or you feel disconnected, people have different areas of themselves that they might feel that they're reconnecting themselves to become more whole. I think we all are, to varying degrees. I think we all go through the passageway, the different initiations on the life journey that have, again, affected us in such a way that perhaps has broken parts of ourselves or fractured us. And now it's our job on the path of awakening to connect ourselves again, to become whole. And I believe that individually, and I believe that collectively, as a collective consciousness on the planet. So present time awareness is the place where we can do the best work. There's different levels of consciousness, if you will, and our awakened state, our day in, day out state of I'm in the present moment, I'm trying to make a concerted effort to stay more present, that I can become aware of where I'm working on myself to become more whole. A whole can be interpreted personally. What that means for you might be different for me. My wholeness means that I'm becoming more of my authentic self. I'm becoming more Ora. Who is Ora? Ora in this lifetime. Who is the Ora that I want to live as, and the Ora that I want to continue? In my new book, I have a chapter called Being and Becoming. And I believe that happens at the same time. We are being who we are, and we're becoming who we are, simultaneously. So the present moment and being present in the moment, excuse me, helps us become more whole human beings, if you will, by doing away with what's inauthentic, by releasing the parts of ourselves that perhaps keep us continue to be fragmented, to keep us not integrated as a whole human being. That's part of the, I believe, the work on becoming a more authentic human being.
Yeah. I very much resonate and agree with this. And I found another sentence, and there's so many beautiful in Live True, but one that I wanted to make myself a note of because I so liked it. And it probably speaks about the same things we've been talking about already with just different words. And it is, the real magic comes from within. So in all the context of what we've been speaking now, what does it mean?
When I was writing my book and I was exploring that particular chapter, and I thought to myself, you speak of things like oneness, wholeness, the non-separateness, if you will. Mm-hmm. We acknowledge that we are connected to everything and to all sentient beings, that we are really not separate from anyone or anything. And that's when we can get these glimpses or these waves of what can be called oneness, wholeness, unity consciousness, whatever that means to you, personal. The magic within really came to me because I thought again about who we are, that we are these extraordinary, unique, individual spirits that come into the world, and that we are miracles, and that each and every one of us has this magic. What I'm calling is magic. I don't mean magic in a, let's do magic tricks. I'm talking about magic is a sublime, miraculous, divine essence of who we are. We can seek magic. We want moments to be magical. And I talk about that in the chapter. We want to feel something that's exalted and magical and miraculous. We constantly want to feel that outside of ourselves. And what I was really proposing is that lives within each and every one of us. We can access that within ourselves if we go deep within ourselves, that we have the magic within us. The very thing that gets our attention, a sunset, a sunrise, something that takes our breath away, that we go, oh, that's so magical, that's so beautiful, that's so magnificent. If we looked more inward and connected to the beauty and the miracle that we are, we would be able to understand that the magic really lives within us, and we can access it, we can drop into it whenever we want. And that can feel very exalting, and that can feel very, unbelievable. The waves that we can feel when we drop into who we really are can feel magical, is really in essence what I'm saying.
Yeah, I so agree. Mm-hmm. And it belongs to the most beautiful experiences I believe a human being can have. Mm-hmm. So for everybody who wants to know more about you, who maybe would like to work with you or learn from you, what are their options and how can they find you?
Well, they can find me through my website, oranadrich.com, and I always keep it up to date. So I enter articles that I'm writing or workshops that I'm doing. My meditations are up there as well. I have a lot of recorded meditations, so that's there for anybody who wants to listen to that. And as you mentioned earlier, my Thought Coach certification training program, which I'm very excited about, and more people are taking it, and I'm offering it now half off because of the time that we're in right now, and finances might not be so fluid for people. I'm very excited about that. I have people from all over the world that have become certified thought coaches, and it's really an incredible program that I've created that really is the techniques and the skill sets and the methods and the technology, if you will, that I've pulled from my first book, Says Who, which is the transformation of thinking. Do you know? So whether somebody wants to be a thought coach or not, it doesn't even matter. You do get certified as a thought coach, which is a niche of coaching that I've created, but that it helps you really understand the workings of the mind, how to transform negative thoughts to positive thoughts, and really recalibrate our thinking, you know, in a whole new way, the mind of today. So that's a great way to connect with me. Also, if somebody wants to reach out to me and just wants to connect in their own personal way, they can email me, and you know, I'm open to that as well. So, and I love connecting with people. I really want to know where people are at on their mindfulness journey or their journey of awakening. I'm fascinated by it, and I love to spread mindfulness wherever I can so that people can join on the mindfulness journey. It's very exciting for me.
Yeah, and we will link to all important places right below this interview so everybody can easily find you. And it always feels strange when a conversation ends, because I could just go on and on exploring all those concepts with you. And maybe we can continue with your next book whenever it is out.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I thank you for the time and the space that we now have shared with each other, which has been very precious for me. And I'm sure many people will greatly benefit from it. So thanks.
No, thank you. I thank you as well. I so enjoyed our first conversation and our ongoing conversation, which I know will continue on. Do you know that you and I will be in a flow of conversing. So thank you for having me again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And so goodbye, everybody. And always remember to take the driver's seat of the car called your life and create this lifetime to your taste. It's our pleasure here at Mind Gourmet to support you with our food for thought. Bye, Ora, and bye, everyone.
Bye, Nina.